By some figures, a new generation of Canadians spend as much as 90% of their free time staring at screens. Computers, tablets, phones, smart or otherwise. Is this a connection or a disconnect? In a moment, guest host Eternia speaks with another illustrious one-name guest, Raffi. A legend among generations of Canadian kids, he reflects on his new book, Light Web, Dark Web. Tech guru Marc Saltzman offers his 2 gigabytes worth. Then a sometimes self-confessed Luddite talks about gadgets, life, and balance. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
Welcome to Context. I'm Eternia, and I am so grateful that Lorna Dueck has loaned me her TV show this week. No one who's had kids or has even been a kid over the past few decades needs to be told that Raffi is one of the best-loved, most prolific children's entertainers going. Raffi Kavukian has set down his guitar just long enough to write a new book, Light Web, Dark Web, where he writes about the need for reform in social media for young people. Raffi, welcome to Context.
Hello.
Raffi, you say there is a need to reform social media, especially among younger users. Why is that?
Well, we all want our young kids and our teenagers who are online to be safe. And we know from experience that for children, online use of the internet is fraught with perils. This book, Light Web, Dark Web, is dedicated to the Vancouver teen Amanda Todd, who took her life at the age of 15 after being tormented by a sexual predator online for quite a few years. We need to make sure that our children are old enough to understand the perils of the dark web, as I call the nefarious parts of the internet, so that we all can feel better about optimizing our use of the light web. And by that I mean all the things that we love about the internet, the connectivity, the access to a global storehouse of information, but our kids need to be informed. Parents need to be aware of the dangers so that they can best guide their kids, and that's why I wrote this book, Light Web, Dark Web.
In your book, you bring focus to 3 areas: safety, intelligence, and sustainability, as markers from where social reform should start. What led you to those 3 areas?
Well, as I thought about what reforms do we need in social media and internet culture, safety was an obvious one. I've just touched on it. Intelligence is another thing to look at. In other words, this global, worldwide revolution in technology, is it making our societies more intelligent? I mean, if you think about it from the point of view of a tech dependency and addiction that we're now seeing in young children, even in the early formative years, that's not a good sign. We've barely had any research to tell us that the worldwide tech revolution is good for growing kids. So I say in my book, Light Web, Dark Web, that children's developmental needs has been a missing but important consideration in the digital age. We need to think about how this technology is affecting societal intelligence. And if it's addicting kids from a young age to a technology they barely understand, there's some research to be done, and there's a lot of deep discussion to be had. We can't just take it for granted that this is, a marvelous thing for everybody all the time. No, it's not.
So in a society where kids are becoming more digital savvy by the day, how do you hope your book will make a difference for them?
Well, in the book and throughout the interviews I'm doing, I'm calling for parents and teachers to embrace digital literacy for students, and also digital citizenship to be taught. In other words, the information superhighway needs drivers who have a license to drive, who are old enough to drive. You see the metaphor that I'm using? And that license basically is a course in digital literacy and digital citizenship. By citizenship, I mean what are our rights online and what are our responsibilities, because rights don't come without responsibilities. We want in the online world a culture of respect, just as we would want in the real world and the neighborhoods in which our kids grow up.
It's kind of funny you're referring to this rite of passage similar to getting your driving license. So what differences do you see in the younger users and adults in their interaction with social media?
Well, young people on social media are very smart and very savvy with the technology, or so they think. But often they'll be, posting things on Facebook and on Twitter that they shouldn't. They'll be giving away their location. They should not do that. They'll be tweeting private things or posting private things that they have no business posting online in a public sphere, and they don't seem to understand the difference between the two. So a keen sense of privacy awareness is very important for our young users. Now, adults have their own problems with the internet, but at least they're old enough to surf them. You know what I'm saying? But with adults as well, responsible use is very, very important. You only have to see the Twitter stream after a hockey game to see the way, the terribly bad way that people sling insults at each other on Twitter. And I think, well, is this why we have social media, that we can just, hurl abuse at each other? It's crazy.
So is that what happens when the Maple Leafs lose and you're on Twitter?
Yeah, or the Canucks lose.
All right. So is the problem social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, social cam, or is it technology on a whole? Or is it just us, humanity?
Well, information technology as a global revolution, in order to benefit us, it has to be safe for all users. It has to increase societal intelligence. And also it needs to be sustainable. These are the three areas that I cover in my book. The electronics industry as a whole has a long way to go towards greening its practices so that it can be sustainable, so that it can be something that we're proud of, all of us on this earth. Reading Light Web, Dark Web, my book, will open people's eyes. I've spoken to parents, psychotherapists, teachers, policymakers, and there is a growing sense that we need some reforms in social media use, that a responsibility, a prime responsibility rests with companies like Facebook to make sure that their online services are safe. It shouldn't be just left up to parents who often are saying they can't manage their kids' online behavior because it takes like a 24/7 family surveillance state, and nobody wants that, right?
Right.
So, and I would also say that the CRTC has a role to play here. I mean, they're charged with regulating media. I think it's time that they looked at reforming social media.
So you're talking about, Facebook reform, regulations, but how much of the problem just lies in human and social responsibility, so our own ability to practice simple self-control?
Well, self-control and self-restraint, self-regulation is very important, but keep in mind that these infotech devices, which I call shiny tech, are seductive in their power. They're addictive. And it takes a great deal of maturity and self-restraint to use them properly so that they don't use us.
Raffi, thank you. All very good points. I appreciate you being here. Raffi Kavukian, children's entertainer and author, joining us from Victoria. From the need to reform social media to putting it to use. Sheldon, put your phone down. It's over to you now.
Oh, almost got me. Caught right. You're supposed to have my back, audience. Thank you, Eternia. Our question for you at home is this, especially parents and kids trying to work out questions of screen time. Are you looking for ways to reform your own family's habits? Or are you happy with things just the way they are? You can, of course, reach us by social media, or if you're more comfortable, you can choose a phone. Forget about what Eternia says. Mail, skywriting, whatever really works.
After the break, our Sheldon Neal catches up with Canadian tech guru Marc Saltzman on how much screen time is too much, who's affected, and what new tech trends are on the horizon. Stay with us. Give me your phone. Just give it to me. I'm taking over. Welcome back. Recently, we caught up with Canadian tech guru Marc Saltzman for his insights into the impact our big screen, small screen lifestyle has on society. And we sent our own superstar Sheldon Neal to connect with Marc, face-to-face, no gadgets allowed, to find out who's most affected by the rise of the gigabyte world and which gadgets are on the horizon.
Tech trends, I mean, how much of it is pushing, especially my generation, forward? I mean, everyone's always on their cell phone, their tablets, but how much of it is a factor in people's lives?
On one hand, it's great because these are tools that, previous generations didn't have access to. So we had to wait to get things done or wait to get information. And there's obviously countless benefits. You know, there's the safety and security, the peace of mind knowing that you can reach your kids as they're walking home from school if they've got a phone in their backpack, or you know, if you're using smartphones for work, you can turn downtime into productivity. Like, you know, if I'm waiting in line at the supermarket, I can put out little fires, you know, by reading my email. I can, you know, even as a journalist, if I'm sitting in an airport, I can even write a good chunk of my article on a smartphone. They're getting bigger and easier now with voice input, not just typing. So that's all great. So that's all the benefits of smartphones, is that they connect us and all that. The problem is that we're increasingly reliant upon them to the point where, you know, I fear that future generations aren't going to be able to socialize so well, face-to-face socialization.
So how do you make the adjustment? Because as much as we're saying, you know what, divide it up, don't give yourself too much to the tech world. I mean, I've seen a lot of your work, and if it's just not yourself, you know, whether it's Rogers, Telus, you see all these great companies saying, you know, we found another way for you to engage more in a technological way. So how do you say no? How do you find that balance?
So I'd recommend, both as a tech, I don't know, I call myself a tech evangelist, but and as a parent, it's all about baby steps. I mean, if raising kids, and I have 3 of my own, in this digital age, it's very easy for them to lose themselves in their devices and sit on the couch and not talk to one another, or even socialize for real, like playing on the street. Remember that, like hockey? But so baby steps, meaning things like, we have a rule in our home: no texting at the table. So I'm not saying you can't use your devices. I think parents would give, you know, it would be a disservice to their kids not to let them online. That's not the answer. Everything's online these days, you know, from shopping and banking to socializing to entertainment. So that's not the answer. The answer is to teach them, you know, what's right and wrong, to trust their gut, tell them things that we told our kids that, you know, I was told with my parents' generation, like, don't talk to strangers. That all applies online. But just to have rules, just to have some rules and regulations. Another tip for parents who have younger kids is to put, you know, these mobile devices or even a computer in a highly trafficked area of the home. So you just keep an eye on where they're going. Don't let them go to their bedroom with their iPod Touch or their phone or tablet or even a laptop. And because, you know, who are they video chatting with? And teach them that a friend online is really not a real friend if you've never met them. And it's a bit of common sense. It's a bit of sort of some digital discipline, you know, and some rules. And you know, the problem is, here's the irony: the kids understand the stuff more than the parents. So the parents don't know where to start enforcing it because they don't get it, right? They don't realize what their kids are able to do online. The kids know more. So how are you possibly going to enforce any rules when they get it, you know, when they understand this stuff better than we do?
So talk about now the health risks involved with too much of the digital age taking over.
Well, first of all, there's the obvious ones like having cell phone signals everywhere and up to your, that's obviously not recommended. You want to be hands-free, and also behind the wheel. We're so addicted to these mobile devices that you take a look left or right at any red light and we're on our devices. The governments are trying to impose stricter fines and even demerit points. In fact, distracted driving, which includes, of course, texting and driving, and handheld driving, it now accounts for the most number of driver deaths in the country. Now behind drinking and driving and speeding, now number 1 is distracted driving. So clearly it's a big problem.
Tech trends that we should be looking out for, exciting things that I always look out for what you have to say about that, so I have to ask.
Thank you. You know, I'm doing a lot more speaking these days, like keynotes and stuff, and one of my favorite speeches is 10 technologies worth getting excited about. So some things that are on the horizon that are mind-blowing are, you know, driverless cars and even flying cars. So autonomous cars that'll drive you to work or home from a party with little or no interface with that you have to worry about. Domestic robots. I think what the internet did for our generation, robotics will be the next big thing for my kids' generation. So that's pretty exciting. Space tourism. So the ability to go into space for a relatively affordable price and see the Earth from above instead of, you know, going down south with the family for a week. VR, virtual reality and augmented reality, very cool stuff. Wearable technology, Google Glass and smartwatches like this. Just having more access to information that doesn't hurt sort of social interaction. If I can see information without going like this and blocking you out, we'll find a way to do the two together. So there's a lot of great stuff on the horizon, and I'm super stoked about it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for spending time.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheldon. We're interested in hearing from parents and kids coming to grips with the screen age. Here's our question. What do you think is the right age for a younger person to own a cell phone? Is it any age they want, 13, 16, or maybe not till they're an adult? Send us your message by one of the means on the screen. If you're a young person contacting us by phone, mention that to us. We see, hear, and appreciate every message. Coming up, learning what it is to have a digital detox. Stick around.
Today's topic is all about screen time. How much is too much? And Context is all about being interactive. So call us, email us, tweet, or Facebook us. How else are you going to join the conversation? We want to hear from you.
When an everyday love for technology grew into something more, our next guest found herself needing to unplug, literally, from a life tied to technology and reintroduce herself to the world and the people around her. Christina Crook is a TEDx speaker and author of Digital Detox, Rethinking Our Lives Online. Please welcome Christina Crook to Context. So before we begin, give it up.
Okay. We all got it all the time, don't we?
Okay, Christina, what is a digital detox?
A digital detox is a time where we set apart maybe a day or a month. A month is an extreme example, but maybe a day a week, where we cut off our ties to digital technologies and we focus on the people in front of us and real life experiences.
Now, why did you feel you needed to say no to technology?
I had felt like my relationship with the internet was beginning to be more compulsive than it was intentional. I was feeling like I was disengaging from my really deep, true relationships and kind of filling my time with filler via Facebook, Twitter, etc. I was feeling like I was kind of becoming lazy, particularly as a writer and as a thinker. And as a friend, I wasn't remembering people's birthdays or just calling them out of the blue. I was kind of checking in with people through Facebook and filling in the gaps instead of engaging with them directly. I wanted to figure out what kind of person and parent, I'm a mom to 3 young kids, I would be when I stepped offline.
So how does this ever-increasing use that we all have for technology, you mentioned the birthdays, the friends, the family, how does this use of technology impact our relationships with our family, our community? Is it attacking those relationships?
I don't know that it's attacking, but I think that whenever we have something mediating between us and someone else, it's a bridge that we have to get across. And so when it comes to the internet, it's helpful for us to remember birthdays through Facebook, but it doesn't feel the same when we post on someone's wall as opposed to calling them, right? It has a different feeling. And so I think that that is something that we all need to be mindful of in our relationships.
True. So how did this digital detox affect you? Who were you before you began and who were you after?
I would say it was pretty normal before. We're all pretty smartphone addicted if we have one, which is pretty much all of us at this point in time. But like I said, I mentioned the laziness. I just wasn't feeling like my head was as clear as I'd wanted it to be. And I remember a time before the internet, I got my first email account when I was in grade 12. Like I was 18 years old. That's pretty late for most people probably watching this show. And it's progressively crept up on me in terms of my use. And I was seeking a peace, a quietness of mind that I'd been hungering for a long time. And when I stepped offline for 31 days, I found that.
Do you think that God wants or desires that for all of us to experience that peace?
Yes.
So I guess, okay, so in saying that, how do people that can't afford the luxury of a digital detox, how do we, find this peace in this plugged-in world?
I think that Jesus was the most mindful person that ever walked the earth. He had a presentness with people that drew them to him. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we are meant to embody that in our lives. So not everyone can take 31 days or a year or even a day off the internet if their jobs demand it. But I think that we all can become more mindful in our approach. So I have a few examples that I like to share with people. One of them is dropping your phone at the door when you get home. Even if you are single, you carve out a quiet haven at the end of your day where you just can relax, sit on the couch, pick up a book, eat a meal, and just focus on the meal. There are things that we can do day to day that can help us enliven our real lives and sort of say goodbye, for at least temporarily, to our online ones.
And talking about our real lives, you're a mother, you know, we all have people that are around us every day that are watching us. How does our use of technology impact those around us, not just our own peace of mind?
We're all familiar with the smartphone fondling. My husband's uncomfortable with that word, but I really do think that's what it is. We're fondling it, right? And the awkward pauses in the day. And every time we do that, we're choosing a computer over a person. We have people all around us all the time. So I think we need to pay attention to that.
So how does your faith intersect with the balancing of, you know, the use of these technologies? How do we get that balance?
Balance is an interesting word. I don't think balance is possible. I use mindfulness a lot. In my book title, the publishers actually wanted the word balance, and I railed against it because I think balance can be really elusive. But I do think that we can make choices, and every day, each of our choices creates a life. And so I believe as Christians, it's this mindfulness piece I keep coming back to. There's a Catholic writer, her name is Madeleine L'Engle, who I love. And the quote goes something like this. It says that Jesus is or was what all of us were meant to be, what Adam and Eve were meant to be, and that is spontaneous, free, unafraid to love, whole, not as we are, fragmented, sun side and dark side in collision with one another. And I believe as Christians that we are meant to, especially when it comes to the internet, pursue the light web, as Raffi would describe it. Pursue the light. Jesus is the light. And I believe that as Christians, we're called to be the most human humans of all.
So give us some spoilers. What are some of the key lessons readers can learn from your book?
Two main things. We've all, or many of us are familiar with the term FOMO. So fear of missing out. So we're always on Twitter or whatever newsfeed we love the most because we're worried that we're going to miss out on something. Well, there's a new acronym or a new theme gaining steam, and that's JOMO, which is the joy of missing out. The absolute thrill of being offline and completely missing out on every banal thing happening on Facebook. It's just like the joy of it, right? So that is one thing that I talk about in the book. I talk about the comparison that happens in our lives, but particularly online, where we can keep up with every competitor in our lives, right? Whether it be the mom who's got the better looking car or the better looking life, the person whose career looks way better on LinkedIn. We used to always be able to compare with the people in our lives, but the internet has made that go crazy, and we can be comparing with everyone on every level all the time. Another thing I talk about in the book is this movement from complex and alone to simpler together. We live in a world that is very complex, and we feel very alone. And the worst part of it is that people that used to feel alone, the disabled, the elderly, the recluse, they feel more together because the internet has enabled them to do so, right? To engage with people from their own homes, which is a beautiful thing. And the internet is beautiful for many reasons. But the non-lonely, the rest of us, have followed that same path when we weren't lonely in the first place. We're using the internet to fill a need that we don't have, right? It's an illegitimate need. And so I am, throughout the book, I'm talking more and more about choosing things that are simpler and choosing togetherness. If you have the choice to sit at home and watch Netflix or go out and watch a real show or meet up with some friends, choose people. That's the theme in my book.
So tell me how, your book and this whole detox relates to cotton candy.
Oh, right. So we were talking before about how the internet isn't bad, but it's kind of like candy. You don't live with bags of candy littering your house, right? But having a smartphone is like living on a cotton candy mountain, right? It's just there all the time. You just want to eat little bits of it.
It's good until you eat too much, then you get sick.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christina.
You're welcome.
Christina Crook is a TEDx speaker and author of Digital Detox, Rethinking Our Lives Online. After the break, my closing thoughts on big screens, little screens, FaceTime, and face-to-face communication. In the virtual world, we connect with people, places, and ideas that are unreachable otherwise. But with great screen powers come great screen responsibilities. Today, we've learned of a need for rules and boundaries, even personal ones, to help us map this new frontier. As a recording artist who writes songs and shoots videos and runs my own social media pages, I can say that performing live has the greatest impact with my audience. There's no substitute for face-to-face human contact. Here's where we can learn a lot from the life of Jesus. During his 3-year ministry on earth, he could have distributed writings, but instead he chose to travel to dozens of cities and towns to meet people face-to-face. He visited people's homes. He dined with them. He never said, "I'll drop you a line." He said, "Come with me." And following his death and resurrection, he didn't say he would dwell simply in the pages of a book or on a smartphone or on a screen like the one you're watching now. He said, "I will be with you." With these words, he taught a lesson about presence. And even today, 2,000 years later, with a virtual world at our fingertips, it remains reality that the deep presence of Christ has invited himself into our tech choices. For all of us at Context, I'm Eternia, sitting in for Lorna Dueck. Thanks for watching. Lorna returns next week for more of Life Beyond the Headlines.